This is What's Up with VR. My name is Chris Pruitt. I am the Director of Content Ecosystem at Meta. That's a Silicon Valley term that means the head of third-party games. We call it a content ecosystem team instead of a third-party games team because the goal of this team is not just to produce video games for VR, or not just to make sure that our devices sell well and have lots of content to play, but actually that there's an economic platform upon which developers can actually build their businesses, right? I use the word ecosystem, another Silicon Valley loaded term, but what I'm trying to say is that we want a virtuous cycle between developers who are making high quality things and customers who want to buy high quality things. And we'll talk about it a lot today, but the sort of fundamental idea behind our team is that customers want to buy high quality stuff and developers want to get paid. And so if we can link those two things together, then we can build a platform that is added value for both sides of this equation. I think if you make money in VR, you're much more likely to make more VR software, and if you make high quality software, you're much more likely to sell that software to our customers, and they're going to be happy with us, and they're going to be happy with you. So that's why we call it a content ecosystem team. I've been in the industry a little over 2 decades at this point. Spent a lot of time as an engineer. I have run a studio as a CEO. I have been a game designer a couple of times. Now I'm working on platforms and publishing. It's still fun, still having a pretty good time, and get to learn a lot as I go. This talk is about how we think about VR, and particularly Oculus Quest as a product line, where we think it's going to go, and how we learned about it over time. And I wanted to give this talk because I think it's really important for the developer community to sort of understand, we're a gigantic company, we do lots of stuff all the time. It's sometimes difficult to parse our movements in the market. And I wanted to talk about how Quest came to be and how that informs our thinking going forward. This is not a talk about the metaverse. This is not a talk about future hardware. This is really a talk about the sort of strategy that we deploy at Meta to make Quest successful. I want to say a note about AI art. I was very late in putting this talk together, unbelievably late. And I did not have enough time to finish my slides to the proper degree of quality that I usually do want. So I thought, I have a modern problem and I have a modern solution. AI should be able to make my slides for me. And so throughout this talk, you will see that I have deployed the power of AI image generation to help me make my point. I have no idea what Sarn Brodersen Mimo Bobones is, but I want to read it. It looks awesome. Okay, so we're going to talk about Quest ecosystem. We'll do some factoids. We'll talk about the size of the system, some updates. I want to talk about, as I mentioned, the sort of arc of our VR hardware and platform. I want to talk about our funding and publishing model, which we have not talked about publicly, I don't think ever, really. And I want to talk about mixed reality, which is a new technology we think is super interesting, this tech. And I would like this woman to fix her facial interface. This is not on correctly. OK, so let's jump right into the factoids. Quest Store has now generated over $1.5 billion. That's as of October of last year. That's the number of dollars spent on software in our store on Quest. There's about 500 titles available on the platform today, a little over 500. And 40 of those titles have over $10 million in revenue on our platform. I was up here last year talking about the updates to the Quest ecosystem last year. And since I was here a year ago, the number of titles that have 20 million in revenue on our platform has doubled. That's the last 12 months. I asked the AI art for a successful game store, and it gave me Blockbuster. I think half the room doesn't know what that is. It's not just the evergreen titles, though. Everybody knows Beat Saber and Super Hot and the titles that have been successful for a long time. It's not just those titles that are driving the success. We've released actually a number of titles even in the last year that have done extremely well. Bone Lab made $1 million in its first hour. Gorilla Tag, a viral social competitive game, made $26 million on our App Lab platform before it even decided to come to our store. That's a massive success. Across all VR platforms, Among Us, which just launched in November, has sold over 1 million units. very significant numbers for any game platform, I think. I mean, these are success no matter how you cut it. We have other things I didn't put on the slide, like NFL Pro Era. It's a high-end football game, did very well for us last year. There's a game called Zenith, which is basically an indie MMO made by a very small team of very talented people. It's done very well on their platform. There's a lot of success in a lot of different genres, even in the very recent past. So what we're seeing here is this overall sort of dramatic growth of the market, and because the market is growing, the opportunity space for different types of video games. The space for monetization strategies is growing too. Like most of the software in our store today is like a premium app, as is like Bone Lab here. But we also are seeing in-app purchases and paid with in-app purchases and free with in-app purchases and subscriptions and other types of monetization systems actually generate enough money to warrant investment. Like Gorilla Tag here has made this $26 million with in-app purchases, which is amazing. We haven't really seen that in the past. It is a sort of marker of our growth. We've started to see some genres sort of pop out of what's popular, and I intentionally didn't use the genre terms that we usually use, like action, adventure. That's like all video games are either action or adventure, right? It's actually the interaction model that appears to be the thing that is driving the most interest in our customer base. So like messy physics combat is totally a genre, right? And it turns out when you have like hand track controls and you got like a lot of fidelity over your near field gross motion, and you have a messy physics simulation, you can have a really good time, whether it's beating somebody to death or just making a mess. This genre, as an example, has done very well across a number of products. We also started to notice that we talk about social a lot. We're like, hey, social game, social, meta, social. But actually, there's like tiers inside social, right? Like meta talks about social all the time. We kind of usually mean social collaborative, which is totally a thing. And you've got your rec room and your VR chats and those types of things where you get together with somebody and maybe there are activities in there, but first and foremost, it's about being with other people. We're also seeing a lot of motion on multiplayer social competitive, which look a lot more like traditional multiplayer games, even when they look crazy, like Gorilla Tag, for example. Or we have Population 1 or Onward. There's a number of titles in this genre that are also doing quite well. And again, it turns out that being articulated, even if it's very simple, even if you're a monkey, being articulated in VR is super duper compelling. And doing that with other people, whether it's competitive or not, is compelling. But those are two different genres, I think. We've seen fitness and wellness and workout applications in general sort of rise, I think, much more quickly than some of us anticipated. It turns out that people who buy a Quest to play video games, a lot of them also want to work out. And we can provide a workout thing that's way better than what you get with a TV or something, because we can track your motion. We can tell you how many calories you actually burned. There's something there with the fact that your motion is tracked and it is immersive and you can get a pretty good workout in 30 minutes or less that is really compelling to a bunch of titles in that genre. And then I mentioned horror adventure here. Horror just does well on every platform. But for our platform in particular, I think it's an interesting genre to see success in because it is the first of a kind of larger genre, I think, of single-player narrative experience games that our audience is telling us that they really want. I put these down in the growth categories, right? Horror is just one variant. Horror is a variant that's really easy to understand and consume. And if you're interested in horror, you can corner me at some point and you will lose 3 hours of your life because I will tell you about it. But I think there's a larger genre here, which is single-player sort of expository narrative games. I'm a big fan of Life is Strange, for example. Those types of titles, we see a lot of interest in our customer base. We don't have a ton of them today. What we have is the early segment of those is the horror games. Other growth categories, surprising to me, was boxing, golf, other sports, not specifically fitness applications. Lots of people doing these things in VR. And we have a signal of heat, I would say, around RPG, simulation, and survival as genres, where we don't have a ton of titles in these genres, but the titles we do have been significantly successful. And so we think that there's actually quite a bit of appetite in our customer base for more of those. This is not an exhaustive list. This is the list that I thought was most interesting based on the dashboard that I looked at. So if you were to look, we don't talk about our sales numbers for Quest, but if you were to graph our sales numbers, what you would see is that we look a lot like a console. We have spikes at Christmas time, for example, and the graphs and the scale of the graph that you would see would compare very normally to a traditional console platform. And it's important to understand that our customers see Quest as a console device. They see it as a games device. Now, at Meta, we have all kinds of ideas about what VR is going to be used for, and we've got all kinds of plans, and it's definitely going to be used for more than just video games. But our customers today understand Quest to be a video game console, and they're not wrong. It's in fact how they all use it as well. And the thing that's most dramatic to me is that we have taken what was, I don't know, I guess I can do show of hands. How many people were working on or owned a VR device in 2017? It's 5 years ago. Yeah, okay. It's maybe a fifth of the room, maybe. In 2017, 2018, I think most of the industry had decided that VR was dead. That was it. We tried. It was cool, neat technology, cool tech demo bro, but it didn't light the world on fire. It didn't grow like a console. And where we're sitting today is we're 5 years later, and we are actually competing quite handily against established devices that have been out for a lot longer, that have IPs and brands that we wish we had. And so we're doing very, very well. And I want to talk a little bit about how we span that gap, how we got through a place of what I would say was the lowest single point for VR industry in about 2018 to where we are today, which is probably the highest single point we've ever had. And then tomorrow it'll be a little bit higher than that, and tomorrow it'll be a little bit higher than that. So we go back and look at the old VR devices. They were kind of cumbersome. There was a lot of risk and a lot of hype, right? We had risk and hype in dual parts. This is going to change the world. Oh my gosh, we call it a contact religion. You try a VR headset and your mind gets blown and you suddenly believe in it because it's awesome. That's still true today, by the way. You want somebody to believe in VR, just put a headset on them. But then there's also a lot of risk because, oh my gosh, the Oculus Rift required a super high-end gaming PC, and you had to put these trackers around your house and tether 16 things to the right USB port, not the wrong USB port, the right USB port. And if you didn't do all those things, then it didn't work, or it worked poorly. And there was so much interest, but not in a shape that was going to be successful with the mass market, right? Not a product shape that was actually going to work. And we have believed for a long time. I've been at Meta for 9 years now almost. And the entire time we've understood that look, what customers are going to want is high quality video games. What they want to play is AAA video games. That's what they want. And so even back in the Rift area, not my group, but the Oculus Studios group that makes these high-end first and second party video games, they made these games like Lone Echo, which was by Ready at Dawn, Edge of Nowhere, it's by Insomniac. There's Stormland is another Insomniac game, and Defector, which was made by Twisted Pixel. These are super high-end VR games that probably none of you have played. Or maybe a few of you have played if you were here in that era, but they were made by AAA studios and they're big budget, massive, awesome things that really didn't get seen or get leveraged because the product itself did not make it into the mass market, right? It didn't achieve liftoff from the launch pad. And I think that's really unfortunate, right? We have a lot of high quality stuff at this era that just never got used, never got seen. And internally, at Meta, we were actually having this deep debate, right? And there's two sides. It's my favorite image in the entire talk, by the way. There's two sides to this debate. One of them was, the Rift side of the house, right? Where it's what we're interested in is fidelity. What customers are going to be interested in is fidelity, right? High-end graphics, high-end experience, 90 frames a second, tracked controllers, 6 degrees of freedom. Yeah, you got to have a high-end PC, but that's okay because these are customers who are going to have that in their house anyway. It's about fidelity. And the other side of the house was no. It's about scale. It's about reach. Do you care about a product that only reaches 1 or 2 or 3 million people? Why don't you have a product that reaches 10 million people? Why don't you have a product that reaches 50 million people? And if you're going to do that, it has to be highly accessible. It has to be cheap at retail. It has to be self-contained. It can't rely on a PC. And this was a fidelity versus reach argument. And we I'm sitting in content, so I'm between these two groups. I worked on both of these hardware, both of these. We shipped games for everything. But the problem with this argument is both of them are super valid. Like there are lots of examples in the market of consumer electronics that went the reach route and totally killed it. And there's lots of examples in the market of people that just air it in on fidelity. At fidelity at all costs. Most of the last 30 years of the game industry, right, is about increasing fidelity with hardware generations. And they killed it, right? So who's to say which of these is the correct one to do in 2016, 17, as we're sitting there having this argument? And just the way that Meta thinks about things is we don't like to trust instinct. We all have a lot of opinions. We have a lot of internal debates. I have an opinion on everything. Very happy to share it with you. But opinions are a dime a dozen, right? The proof is in the market. What we'd like to do is put something out there in the market and understand if our theories are right or not. And until we actually have some customer validation that the theory is correct, we kind of tend not to believe it. And so this debate between the Rift side of the house and the sort of Gear VR Go side of the house, it went on for a long time because we did not have sufficient market proof that one of these was better than the other, particularly during the Gear VR days. And I think one of the differences of Meta, one of the reasons that I really enjoy working here, and in other normal companies, is that we're willing to make big bets that are experiments. We fundamentally want to see customer response, and we want to double down on something that the customers have told us is legitimately the thing that they want. We want to see the signal. We don't want to have somebody win debate club or a really cool PowerPoint convince us that this is the right thing. We actually want to see the customers do the thing that we expect them to do. And we're willing to fund experiments. So, I think most companies would have looked at these two extremes and they would have said oh, well, we're going to do a forecast and we'll make some projections and we'll come up with a theory and we'll just pick one. Fidelity, reach, whatever, we'll pick one. Our approach was to say, why not both? Or Shoals-Tribus. So that's what we did. We shipped both these things. We shipped Oculus Go. We shipped Rift. I mean, you guys probably know this history, but we just basically put the fidelity versus reach thing to the test. And we put both of them out on the market. We put a bunch of effort into both of them. We made content for both of these things. We marketed the crap out of them. We sold them at retail. We put them in different countries. We just did it properly. And we learned a ton. We learned a ton about this. And we used the things that we learned to design Oculus Quest. And the main things we learned is, number one, that content is king, which the AI has tried very hard to write here, and we should all encourage it. It's still learning. Content is king. There's an early group of people who are going to buy your high-end technical headset because it's a high-end technical headset, because they're super excited about the lens curvature, or what chips are in it, or how the tracking works. That's cool. I love those people. They are our strongest, most diligent supporters. And they buy everything, and they're in for everything, and they're just very, very excited. I love them. They're awesome. Those are your enthusiasts. They don't represent the normal audience, though, right? The rest of us mortals show up to buy the thing that you can experience with a headset. Headset's just a means to an end, right? The thing that you do in the headset, the game you experience or the application you use, that's what sells you the hardware, not what chips are in the box, right? And so content's king. It has to be king. If you don't have content, you don't have a product. And if content can't be successful, by the way, I hate the word content, just as an aside. Silicon Valley uses content like motor oil in an engine. You pour it in there, make it work, right? I'm using it here just to mean the stuff that you all build, is whether it's an app or it's a video game or it's a movie. If it's not good, if it's not compelling to the customer, then they're not going to show up and they're not going to engage. And conversely, a product that cannot make good content creators successful isn't going to survive, right? We're going to have an ecosystem that can drive success for content creators, for app developers, for game developers, financial success, things that they can actually use to pay their employees and grow their businesses, or we don't have a product in the long term. We also learned that VR is about video games. It's like very surprising, right? No, like we have all kinds of plans. Like I said, we believe that the technology has applications in all sorts of places, like education, training. We've already talked about fitness a little bit. We've actually done quite a bit of research. Social is another area. What we found out is that might be true. It may still be true. I'm sure that our VR devices will be used as a general compute platform, as we like to say, in the future. But in 2019, when we were preparing to launch Quest, we went and asked a huge number of people who were interested in VR but didn't own a VR device. We said, hey, if you're going to buy a VR device, what do you think it's for? And they said, video games, number one. Number two, they said travel. And you're like, okay. And number three, they said multiplayer video games. I'm like, oh, okay. So like video games is like 2 out of 3. And those are the top categories for purchase intent by a huge margin, right? And we're like, oh, okay, well, travel, that's weird. What's travel about? And we thought about, well, I guess it makes sense. Like you put the headset on your head and it's kind of a teleportation device, right? Like you put it on your head and you go somewhere. So maybe you want to go to like Machu Picchu. I've never been to Machu Picchu. It sounds great. I'd like to go to Easter Island. Maybe we could build that. That sounds cool. And we continue to do market research over the years, and we realized that after a while, when they say travel, a lot of them don't mean Machu Picchu. They mean like Hogwarts, or they mean like Mars. Like places you cannot go, fantastical places. And I'm like, that might actually just be video games again. So basically VR, in the customer's mind, regardless of how we feel about it, VR is about video games, right? And that's part of the reason Quest sells like a console. We learned all this. Also that accessibility is super important. You cannot have a device that requires you to tether to a PC or drill holes in the side of your walls to set up trackers. Like, it's just not going to be mass market. It has to be super simple to set up. It has to be put it on and go. It has to be standalone. Accessibility super duper matters. And basically, neither Rift nor Go were good enough, right? Both of these groups were wrong. Because the problems, the things that like held each of those respective products back were deal breakers. They were too large to make them successful. And so we're like, okay, well, good news. We've been developing this Quest device for a really long time. It's the merger of these two things. Let's do that. And we did. And Quest is actually in development for a really long time. The first Quest device, it was actually in development before Go even went into development. And we very late in the program, based on these learnings from Rift and Go, pivoted the Quest device to be much more games focused. And as an example, we changed the controllers. If you got one of the very early Quest dev kits, like the very first generation of Quest dev kits, which very few people actually got, they came with these controllers that look like the Quest controllers, but they have these little trackpads on them. And the reason they have trackpads is that the Go controller had trackpads. And trackpads are good for like, scrolling through lists and stuff. This is what we thought people might want to do with 6 Degrees of Freedom Go, which is kind of how we thought of Quest. And what we learned was that, no, if people want to play video games, in video games you got to be able to like, push a button and push up on an analog stick and move forward and like do stuff that you can't do very easily with a trackpad. So I don't know if any of you have ever worked on a hardware pipeline, but changing a hardware pipeline once it's been set up is extremely expensive and extremely difficult. But we did it. We actually had to Dremel some of the early controllers to insert the sticks and buttons. We did it because it is what the device is absolutely going to require to be successful. And the white version here on the slide, that's the very first Quest controller prototype that we built after learning this and having a pretty hard pivot. And this one in the middle is my favorite. It's actually not super relevant to the conversation, but I put it in there anyway because it looks awesome. It's like a remote control. It has no tracking on it. This giant tracking ball has been stuck onto. It's just been taped on the back. This is our very first tracked controller prototype. And the ball has little LEDs on it. See, that's kind of how far we've come. So we built Quest as a games device, and it had all of the features from our 2 different devices that we knew we needed. It had to be 6 Degrees of Freedom, had to be tetherless, it had to be a standalone device, it had to have sticks and buttons on the controller. We took the learning from the market and we changed the product in order to match what the product needed. And what we learned is like our customer base actually changes over time. And I alluded to this a minute ago, but like, the early folks who buy the device look different than the folks that buy it in year 2, and they look different than the folks who buy it in year 3. The folks that are buying Quest now look different than they looked at the beginning. And very generally speaking, that's about moving from an enthusiast crowd into a much more mass market crowd. And I'm an engineer, I didn't go to business school, but if you go to business school, I believe they teach you this thing, which is the technology adoption curve. It turns out, this is like very well understood, thing that a lot of consumer products go through, where you sort of start down at the bottom left and you kind of go up through these different segments of customers. And they start out as very innovative, early, sort of early adopter segments. And then you sort of cross the chasm, which is the point at which it becomes acceptable for regular people to use your hardware. And then you start to sell to a much larger audience of people who don't really care that much about the hardware. They're there for the experience. And so we've seen Quest has made it across this chasm. And as a result, the size of the audience has gone up very significantly. Because the size of the audience has gone up very significantly, the revenue potential for developers has gone up very significantly. Because the revenue potential for developers has gone up significantly, the quality of the software that we're shipping has really dramatically improved, even on the same hardware, right? I mean, Quest 2 is faster than Quest 1, but it's incremental improvement, right? And the cohorts of customers that we're seeing come into our market today, they just look very, very different than those early VR folks. The early VR folks are still here. They're still loving it. But the new folks are, they're coming in with expectations that they get from their non-VR game consoles. They're coming in with expectations that, the level of quality and production and polish that they see on their Nintendo Switch or on their PlayStation is what they're going to get in VR. And they don't care about the technical details, about whether that's easy or hard or what. That's just their expectations of what games are and how games are valued. And we've seen just an unbelievable increase in quality over the time. This is from Red Matter 2. It shipped last year. It's an extremely beautiful game that I recommend you play if you haven't played it. But it's running on Quest 2, and it just looks absolutely gorgeous. And it's gorgeous in part because the developers totally know what they're doing. This is a very small, independent team. But also because it turns out that customers like quality. Who would have known? But it's actually a super important point, because it's what our customers are telling us they're looking for is stuff that looks like a quality video game on other non-VR platforms, right? So that means polish, depth, length, production value, visual quality, right? So something like Red Matter is really important because it shows that all that is achievable on our hardware today. So we learned all this. Like, we learned that there's this giant correlation between quality and sales. It turns out, that's what customers want. And if we really want to drive this ecosystem that I referenced at the beginning, we really want to make like a platform where people are going to go buy a lot of stuff, and then the developers who make the good stuff are going to get paid, then we need to help. Like, our job, my job as the content ecosystem team director, is to push quality. And that means helping developers. So we put together a team. I don't know how their masks work, really, but it kind of lip streaked me out. But we put together a team that was designed to help developers increase the quality of their software, right? And we have an engineering team, we have a production support team, we have a developer relations team, we got folks who are experts in like hand tracking, experts in like game design for controllers. We will tell you how the best way to grab something in 3D and which caveats to avoid and how to make your performance fast. And we worked with the product teams at Meta to make sure that we're producing the tools that our developers need to make good stuff. And our product teams work on Unity and make sure the Unity SDK is great. We put all this effort into it, all this effort into making the content that we have coming to our platform as good as possible. And it's worked, right? It's worked. Like, the content's way better, and it sells way better, and our customers love it. It's awesome. But if we're serious about this idea that this is the thing that pushes the ecosystem, right? This is the thing that our ecosystem hinges on, is the quality of the product, the quality of the expectations that our customers have, the level of expectations. Then we need to do more than just like support. We need to actually like put our money where our mouth is. And it turns out that we've actually been kind of doing that for a long time. We've been funding games and funding the support of games out of my group for several years at this point. And our funding model doesn't look like a traditional publisher. We're there to basically assign dollars to developers that are already in progress, already have something on another platform that we think is going to be cool in order to increase its quality, right? We're not interested in owning your IP. We're not interested in controlling the product that you make. What we're trying to do is make sure that the thing that you ship on our platform is the best thing it can possibly be. And we've done this for a long time, but I'm really excited today because we are actually formally announcing this program and this team as the Oculus Publishing team. And thank you. take advantage of the moment to drink a piece of water. Wow. So yeah, you know, this doesn't replace our studios team, right? We still have Oculus Studios, which and a bunch of the, you know, Beat Saber and Ready at Dawn and the studios that we've acquired ourselves. This is not a replacement of those things. This is in addition. This is our third-party publishing program. And I want to show you just a little bit of the titles that we've helped develop and bring to life so far. And we have a cool video about that.
Now you're ready to start your day.
Pretty neat, right? Thank you. I have some stats for you, which I'm very proud of. We've helped fund over 300 titles at this point that have come out for the Quest. And we have another 150 titles that are currently in active development that we're supporting via our publishing program. I think that makes us one of the largest game publishers in the world. That's a pretty big deal, right? I said it briefly, but like our model doesn't look like a traditional publisher model, right? We're not here to own your IP. We don't like fund things that you know, sound good on paper but have no proof behind them. What we're looking for is, and we mostly don't fund 100% of the development cost, right? We're here to add support in the form of money to developers who already have something in development. Maybe you're self-funding your project, or maybe you have another source. Maybe there's another platform that's you know, helping you build for that platform. We can all work together and build something that crosses platforms and is larger than it would be if it was just the two of you. We basically do sort of a incremental spend. Like we're trying to say, well, maybe we'll spend, you know, maybe we'll fund a third of your development budget. But in response, what we want is we want a larger game, we want higher visual polish, we want higher quality, we want better frame rate, we want better art, we want more content. Like what we want is you to increase the value to the end user. And I think that will actually make you more money in the long term, in addition to, you know, taking our money. Like that'll actually make you a much more valuable commodity to the customer. So I can't take credit for the incredible quality of the software that the developers we've worked with have made. You know, like the stuff you saw in that video just now, that's the result of a very large number of very skilled developers doing what they do best. But we're here to help make those things better. And it works out. It works out for us because the thing that drives engagement, revenue, adoption on our platform is quality. And that's the thing we're trying to drive. So I think, you know, just to round out this point, you know, we're well past the chasm on Quest. And we have, you know, the quality, we talked about the quality of the games that we have on Quest is going way up. I actually don't think we're anywhere close to the upper bound for quality, in particular like visual quality and game complexity. I don't think we're close to even maxing out what we can do on Quest 2. And that's partially because we have some like pretty awesome technology that most of you are not using yet that is kind of waiting in the wings. We've been talking about asynchronous space warp for a couple of years. Asynchronous space warp's a way that you can run your game at half frame rate, and we like synthesize every other frame And it's like pretty amazing, badass technology that doesn't, and it comes with a bunch of caveats, right? Like it doesn't work for every video game. And there's certain things you can't do well with it. But for the games it does work for, you essentially double your frame time, right? You double the amount of time that you have to render the frame. And that means you can render a much more complicated frame, whether that means better physics or better shaders or whatever it might mean. But I think more importantly, the increased revenue potential of the platform is what's going to drive quality. Because the challenge always, if I put my game programmer hat back on, which I wear very infrequently these days, the challenge has always been to fit the game vision into whatever the hardware restrictions are. And that's a cost problem, right? Like at some level, that's a how many tech artists can you afford to employ sort of problem. And as the opportunity has increased, like the size of the financial opportunities increase, what we're seeing is developers investing a lot more in the titles that they're building. And the result is much higher quality content. And that's what our customers tell us that they love, right? Meaty stuff. Okay, good groan at that one, that's okay. No, I put this, I had asked the AI to make me a steak that looked like a heart, because I have a good friend, his name is Richard Rouse. He had a talk this morning about design, which you should have attended. And he likes to talk about games as a hearty meal. Like there's a place for junk food, right? Like we all like junk food, it's okay. Eat junk food every once in a while, but you can't like subsist on junk food. You want to eat something that is satisfying and complex and a hearty meal. And that's really like, I always say, oh, we're talking about quality and production value and length and depth and polish and visual quality. Yeah, but actually the hearty meal metaphor that he uses sums it up quite nicely. So I think Quest is off into the races when it comes to VR game software. We understand it really well. But it turns out there's a lot of other stuff we could also do with this device, which is, I think, directly linked to the skills of the people in this room. And I want to talk a little bit about mixed reality. So mixed reality is this technology where we take the sensors that are in the headset, the sensors we use to track your motion as you move around, and we turn that into a video feed, which we feed directly into your display. And what you get is a stereoscopically correct 3D view of your room. Like, hooray, you put your headset on, and now you can see the thing you were just seeing a minute ago. But it's better. It's better because we can composite 3D objects into that room. Now, if you've ever set your Quest up before, and you had to draw your Guardian boundary, you've used a very, very rudimentary version of this technology. But on Quest 2 in particular, it's not super compelling to customers because the sensors are black and white. And a black and white version of your room, just isn't that great. We shipped Quest Pro last year. Quest Pro has color capable sensors. And it turns out that once you can do this sort of video streaming mixed reality thing in color, all of a sudden it becomes much, much more compelling, much more interesting. And we started to see developers experiment with ways that can actually mix 3D generated content into a video scene, a stereoscopic video scene. And we built a bunch of technology about this. We have scene understanding. So you can say, this is your bed, and this is your tables over here, and this is a cushion. And once we know where those things are, we can occlude stuff. You can have a virtual person who walks behind your table and gets occluded by the table. And that's really weird and cool. And it looks freaky the first time you see it. And we have spatial anchors. Spatial anchors is where you attach something to a surface in your house, and then you walk away from it with the headset, and you come back 5 minutes later, and it's still there, it's still in the right position. That's an actually incredibly technically difficult problem, because error accumulates, right? But we've done that pretty well. And once we start to build these sort of core building blocks of tools to help you sort of integrate a 3D scene into this pass-through video scene, we start to actually see something that looks like a mixed reality. And I'll show you a couple videos. This is a demo we developed internally. It's a little robot dude. He's kind of like a night spring thing, but he's got suction cups for hands. And the reason he has suction cups for hands is he knows where your walls and your ceiling are, and he can walk on them. And that's pretty cool, right? Hey, he can walk on the ceiling. He can walk all over your house. He can do more than that, though. He can, actually, like I mentioned, he can go behind stuff. In a minute here, he's going to come down off the ceiling and walk behind this cushion. And we're alphaing about it a little bit so you can sort of see where he still is. But we know where that cushion is, and we can occlude him even as your head is moving around the scene. This is a very simple demo, but it gives you an idea of how powerfully we can integrate a 3D world and a a video stream on the headset today. And I think a lot of people, when they think of this sort of technology, the only exposure to it they've had is like looking through your phone, right? Like looking through your phone at some sort of like, oh, there's a car. I can walk around the car. There it is. It's not really there, but it's there, right? And that's cool. Like, I get it. That's neat, but I don't really get it. Like, I don't know what it's for. The problem with looking through your phone is that it's just a little window, right? You're like looking through a window at something that's supposed to be there, but it's just this tiny little thing. It's a completely different experience when you put this thing on your head, and it's a 360-degree view, and we've got 6 degrees of freedom tracking, and you can reach out and grab it with your hands, and it's part of the world that you're interacting with. I think that one day we may have futuristic AR glasses that do this, in some little tiny form factor, but until then, there's a lot of research and work and grammar writing to be done, and MR is a practical version that we can do today. It works now. It's actually not even that hard to use. Here's a demo from a game called Demio. It's a VR game, but they made an AR version where you play this like awesome dungeon crawler card game thing, but on your couch. So it's pretty neat, right? Like, there's clearly something here. And we've seen a bunch of audience interest, right? Like, we put the stuff out there and people are like, hey, that's actually super cool. I want to try it. And we have this like signal that it's something the customers are going to want. And we made a bunch of SDKs. Here's a screenshot of some of the documentation to communicate the point that we made some SDKs. Like, they're available for Unity and Unreal, WebXR, OpenXR. Like, all this stuff's available now. We got a lot of new features that are coming later this year that you should watch out for. But the basic things I just talked about, scene understanding, pass-through video, spatial anchors, it's all available today. But we don't really know what this is for. Like, we think it's super interesting. We think our customers think it's super interesting. And we've done a bunch of experiments. I'll show you another one. This is a fencing demo that one of our internal game teams built. And what's going on in this demo is 2 people who live in different locations are fencing. But what's cool about it is, first of all, fencing's pretty awesome, and it would be pretty neat to play a fencing game in VR. But in MR, you can actually really let loose because there's no concern about accidentally smashing your lamp, right? Like, you can see your environment. You're not leaving the world entirely. You're, in fact, bringing a piece of a virtual world into your environment and interacting with it in a way that's extremely safe and interesting. And so, like, yeah, it's cool. Fencing, awesome. Teleportation and telepresence fencing, awesome. But then doing it in MR actually feels extremely different than it feels in VR. And it's running on the same headset with the same base technical spec. We're interested in portals. The idea of portals is maybe like, you can erase a wall in your room and there's a virtual world on the other side. Or maybe you're in a virtual world and you put a hole in the virtual world and your real room's on the other side. Virtual characters that move back and forth in between virtual and real world as part of this portal system seems super duper interesting. Like, there's just like a lot of really interesting, the game designer in me is like, I can do this and I can do this and I can do this. Like, it just immediately causes me to get excited about it. The technology is really cool, right? But even though the technology is cool, if I put my blazer black on, I don't care really about the technology, right? Like, the customer doesn't buy it because the technology is cool. The customer's not going to be like, oh, look at the occlusion culling, right? Oh, amazing. It went behind my couch. No. That's the baseline expectation of what it's going to do, right? Like, the customer is going to buy it or be excited about it because it's fun, because it's high quality, because it's something they want to interact with, not because it's a cool tech demo. So we have the technology running today. It's on our devices. I very much encourage you to play with it. If you have access to a Quest Pro, for example, we're going to be putting a lot more effort into this particular style of application because we've seen enough signal from customers to understand that it's something that they're very interested in. But very frankly, it is not us who, as Meta, who are going to decide what MR is about or what it's for. It's not going to be us that writes like the grammar for interaction in MR. We have opinions, we have ideas, but it's mostly going to be you guys. Right? That's how it usually goes, is that we put the technology out there and you guys show us how to actually use it. And so the reason I spent all this time on MR is I wanted to give you a sort of view into one of the things we're super interested in the future, and also sort of ask for your assistance in figuring it out. Right? Ask for you to help us explore the space and figure out what you can do with it. We're pretty convinced that it's going to be super awesome, but we have a lot to learn. And I just want to be super clear, like, this thing is back at the beginning of the adoption curve, right? Like, this is a brand new technology. We don't know how the customers are going to react to it. Probably the customers who react in year 1 will be different than the customer reaction in year 2, which will be different than the customer reaction in year 3. We got a long ways to go. This is the beginning of something that seems like it's going to be super cool. But it's different than VR in 2015 or 2016, 2017, because in this case, it's actually coming with a product that is now already very well established. You know, I mentioned that for fitness, we found out that fitness is what we call an adjacent cohort, right? It's like people buy Quest because they want to play video games. And then they find out that they can also get a workout. And they're like, that's awesome. I totally want to do that also. And it turns out there's actually, you know, maybe you wouldn't have thought about it, but there's a bunch of synergy in our customer base about that. We think that'll also be true for MR. And that the folks that are buying Quest are, you know, almost certainly going to buy it for the next AAA video game. But the thing that they may end up doing with it more might be MR. I don't know that we have, you know, anything authoritative to say about what the use case for this technology is likely going to be, but I think I can say is that they're not going to interact with janky stuff, right? Like the things that will be, I think is a constant across all of the learnings that we've had over the last several years is that customers are interested in quality and they reward quality and they have high expectations. And so I'm you know, sort of asking to hold hands with you, the industry, to help us not only figure out what's cool about this technology. We think it's cool, but what are the interaction, how does it work, what do customers want, but also to make it super high quality. And that's it for me today. Thank you very much for your time. I hope to give you sort of a little preview on how we're thinking about our future projects. And I'm very happy to answer questions if you want to come to the microphone. Thank you very much.